This is a deeper listen from KEXP. I'm Emily Fox. And today I'm bringing you a conversation that was recorded as part of a recent Sound and Vision live event at the KEXP Gathering Space. Sound and Vision is the radio version of this podcast that airs Saturdays from 7:30 to 9 a.m. Pacific at 90.3 FM in Seattle and 92.7 FM in the San Francisco Bay Area, worldwide at kexp.org. And today's conversation is with the Gits. The Gits were an early 90s Seattle band. The month after they were approached to sign by Atlantic Records, their frontwoman Mia Zapata was raped and murdered by a stranger. The case went unsolved for 10 years. It became the first case in Washington state to be solved with DNA evidence. So much of the band's story has been defined by Mia Zapata's death. So instead of dwelling on her passing, we're instead going to focus on the band's story, legacy, and the life of Mia. Seattle Sub Pop Records has recently started a campaign to re-release remastered music by the Gits in an effort to help preserve their story through their music, so that's why we're talking to them now. Here's an edited version of the conversation featuring the Gits guitarist Andy Kessler and bassist Matt Dresner.
So the Gits met and formed at the liberal arts Antioch College in Ohio in the mid-'80s, and from my understanding, it was kind of, please correct me if I'm wrong, but like similar to Olympia's Evergreen College in that you didn't really get letter or numerical grades. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's probably maybe like the bizarro version of Evergreen or Reed in an inverted, demented type of way. So.
Yeah. So then as a band, you decided to get out of the Midwest and get far out of the Midwest, and you landed in Seattle in 1989 because at the time it was an affordable place to live, which is not the case anymore. And it was also like a really interesting time musically because it was right before the grunge explosion in Seattle and then the subsequent punk rock Riot Grrrl movement that started in Olympia, Washington. And I've read some people describe your music as grunge. I understand that Riot Grrrls, really looked up to Mia. And I'm just curious, where you feel like you fell into the scene in Seattle at the time when the band was active, and also how do you define your genre of music?
I mean, some of that stuff I think would have been surprising to us when we were a group to learn that. And the most concise thing to say probably is five chord punk, not 4-chord punk. 5-chord punk with a great singer.
So punk is the answer. Hardcore and punk. Yes.
I think that's.
Yeah, and a lot of these other labels that you described, the Riot Grrrl and grunge, sort of were put upon the scene afterwards, and
yes.
We weren't very conscious or aware or concerned with any of that.
So let's get into the Gits music a little more. I'm curious, Matt and Andy, what would you say are some of the songs that you're most proud of from just a musical or a lyrical standpoint?
Well, some of my favorites certainly would be Seaweed. I actually hate that version. There's a much better one, but Sign of the Crab. Bob. Whirlwind.
Why can't I seem to hold on to a broken thought? This whirlwind's got me and I'm racing out the door. It's not for a while, but when I try to focus, all my convictions come crashing down around me again.
So Matt and Andy, I would love to hear you obviously were such a tight band. You lived in a house together in Seattle. You were.
Well, he didn't live there.
I never
didn't
lived
live
with
there.
these people were too filthy. I couldn't live with them.
That's fair. From the descriptions, I can get that vibe. So, I mean, I'm curious how you both would describe Mia as a human.
Mia was she was just a dear, sweet friend. She was a funny, lighthearted person who was very open-minded and open to people. She saw the good in people. She had, just a phenomenal sense of humor. She, like all of us, could go through some heavy stuff at that time in our lives, but she was a good friend to a lot of people.
Yeah, she was the best, really. She was just a wonderful person. She's a heavy person in a lot of ways, personality-wise, emotionally. Put it this way: she was the person that, when I was having a hard time, she was the first person I would go to speak to. So we used to have, our band was just full of in-jokes, as they tend to be, I guess. And we had a joke that, we'd ask her, so Mia, what's this song about? When we made a new song, she'd go, oh, it's about the torment. And be like, all right, well, okay, what's that one about? I go, it's about the torment, so it was about the torment. But, it's when someone's a little bit in the public and then they die or whatever, they tend to perhaps constellate a lot of kinds of projections upon them and so forth. We were speaking with someone just a couple weeks ago. I mentioned, Ian Curtis from Joy Division. And Mia was a huge Joy Division fan too. But I remember when I was about 18, I had read a bunch of interviews with them. And, maybe from the music and photographs, you have some idea of what Ian Curtis, his image of this very extremely melancholy, despondent young guy in a trench coat and such, looking downward and all this, and his haunting blue eyes and such. But, if you read these interviews, you see like they were really like lighthearted, blue-collared guys who went to the pub and drank, and they were really funny, and stuff. And Mia was, as Matt said, she was a really funny person. At times, not entirely intentionally, but most of the time intentionally. And she was just great, a really creative, caring person. And, so she has an image of being a wild woman in some ways, but she was just a very, very deep person, So.
And a visual artist too.
Visual artist and a writer, I don't think it's recognized what a unique and just powerful writer she was. I was saying this to some of my people here. I think she was, obviously a remarkable rock and roller, wonderful front person, excellent vocalist, great songwriter, and I think she was even a more powerful writer. Like her lyrics were just really unique. And often she spoke that way as well, so she had a very unique way of talking. We were hanging out with her. And I think had she lived, she definitely would have written a lot more things. But she was very had a very strange kind of I don't know even how to describe it, really unusual, offbeat lyricism in a way that came naturally to her because she couldn't spell.
Well, she was dyslexic, I think I read.
Yeah. But she was an incredible writer, very, very powerful and good.
And do you ever think that when you're dealing with the world, the outcome is the best thing for you? And by good or evil is in the knowledge that you're facing. One day you're gonna politically have to. I think I've had enough. Wonder why I don't just go off. Don't like to be a violent woman, but I know I have it in me.
Do each of you have a favorite memory of Mia?
Well, there's too many to choose, so I'll just go with a stupid one. Just a sort of typical antic that maybe this is one that would fall in the realm of unintentional humor. But on one of our tours, we were all, living on $5 per day per diem, and barely earning enough at each gig to get enough to buy enough fuel to get to the next one. And so, we were scraping to eat, and between gigs at one point, Mia opened up a can of tuna in the van and squeezed the water out the window, and it sprayed all the way down the side of the van and into sort of the vent windows. And she was apologetic and offered to eventually clean that up. But that was the sort of she was just a normal, clumsy person doing dumb stuff that we all had to suffer through.
Yeah, she did stuff like that. For example, she had this thing where she really loved to drive, but she didn't know how to drive, and of course, no one ever had given her a license. But she wouldn't tell people that. But she would, if ever asked, "Do you want to drive?" She'd be like, "Yeah," or "Let me drive. Can I drive your car?" and stuff. And the first time this became apparent was me and a friend of ours had back in college. Got a car, and we were driving somewhere. I don't even remember where it was, too. And this was in Ohio, and it's cornfield, so the roads are mostly fairly straight. And if they curve, it's very obvious that they're going to curve, And this friend, me and another guy were in the back seat, and the friend took the passenger seat in the front to let Mia drive, and she floored it, and we were within moments we were screaming, and not as a joke. And she almost flipped the car, as we were approaching a turn, and finally we were just all three of us Mia, stop, and finally the car came to a halt over on the side, and we all, the three of us, really, my heart was pumping. We were like, "What the hell, Mia? Why'd you?" And she just started laughing and going, "Oh, I don't know why these things always happen to me." Like that, as if it just happened.
Can you tell the gas station story?
Yeah, and this is a funny one. So I think it was maybe our first trip down to Los Angeles. And Mia's brother lived in LA, and after the gig, I think we split up and we went and stayed with a friend who had arranged our show, and Mia stayed with her brother, and we spoke early in the morning, whatever, and arranged to meet at a certain diner somewhere. So we all get there before Mia, and we're just waiting, but not for long. And then we see her brother Eric and Mia walk in. And as they're walking in, her brother's laughing and shaking his head, and Mia's just shaking her head and looking down And so I knew something had occurred. And as they approach the table and see us, Eric, her brother, goes, "Guys, you won't believe what Mia just did and what an asshole she is." And we're like, "Oh, what happened?" And Mia was just like, "Oh." And he proceeded to tell us a story that on the drive over, they stopped at a gas station, and Eric got out to go in to pay or something, and said, he was Mia's older brother, and he said, "Mia, here's the squeegee, go wipe down the windshield." So she did that while he went inside, and apparently what happened was, while she was squeegeeing the windshield, a really fancy, posh, red convertible pulls up, and there's this middle-aged, bleach blonde-haired guy with sunglasses pulls up right beside Mia as she's wiping down the windows, and he says, "Excuse me, do you sell cigarettes here?" And Mia goes, looks at him and goes, "I don't know. I don't know if we sell cigarettes here because I don't work here. But thank you for insinuating I look like I do." And the guy, and apparently Eric had come out of the kiosk by this point and observed this happening, and the guy just was like, and kind of chuckled, and then was embarrassed and drove away. And Eric says to Mia at this point, he says, "Mia, you asshole, do you know who that was?" And she goes, "Who?" And he goes, "That's David Bowie." And the thing is that Mia had several of our 7 inches our second one, the Second Skin one that we had put out, and she was like, "Oh my God, Eric, follow him! We have to give him a single! We have to give him a single!" So they jumped in the car, and apparently, this would have been around 1990, maybe 91. As soon as they jumped in the car, Eric had a cassette apparently of Scary Monsters, the Bowie album, and it started playing when he turned the key in the ignition. So while they were trying to follow David Bowie, and of course but they lost him, and then they came to meet us, and so that had happened like 10 minutes prior.
Scary monsters, super creeps, keep me running scared. Scary monsters, super creeps, keep me running scared.
You're listening to a conversation recorded live at KEXP with the 90s Seattle band The Gits. When frontwoman Mia Zapata was raped and murdered in 1993, the music community came together. There were benefit shows featuring Seattle big hitters Pearl Jam, Heart, Soundgarden, Nirvana, and the Presidents of the United States of America. Some of that helped fund Home Alive, an organization that started in Seattle that offers self-defense and was created in response to Mia's murder. Then Joan Jett, who led the Runaways, one of the first all-female bands that formed and made it big back in the 70s, she sang on a Gits cover album with the surviving members of the band. That album helped raise funds to hire a private investigator. Mia's murder case went unsolved for a decade. That's until DNA evidence matched a stranger who was arrested in 2003. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 36 years in prison. I asked the band what it was like to have the music community come together following Mia's passing.
No one knew what to do, including ourselves. There was, our best friend had been killed. It was unsolved. And there was a lot of energy from friends and the music community that just wanted to help in some way. The outpouring was overwhelming. The only thing we could think to do, since the police, we didn't know what, if anything, the police were doing to solve the murder. So we hired a private investigator, and that's what a lot of these benefit shows went to help fund. And
I'd like to say the memorial that we had at a club that was called the Weathered Wall, I think on 5th, was it? I think throughout the day they had well over 1,000 people, maybe between 1,000 and 2,000 come throughout. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and people like, the big bands that you mentioned, everyone was just looking for ways to help, and including Joan Jett, who had mentioned Mia in a video that she had just released on MTV, and that through very peculiar circumstances ended up being a series of benefit shows that we played with her singing, which was surreal. But again, just like the generosity and earnestness of a lot of really good people just wanting to do something.
Each time I close my eyes, I see another chain. It's what I can't forget, something I cannot break out of. I need a second skin, something overdue. Can't seem to get it out of this hole. I feel myself back in.
Your first album, Frenching the Bully, was released in 1992. And then you were in the middle of recording your second album, Enter the Conquering Chicken, when Mia died. And I'm curious, just from a musical logistics perspective, how you were able to finish that record as a band, and what that final product was able to sound like.
It was not good. The situation, we had not finished. There were a lot of vocals that Mia we were just finishing this tour, we just got back, she was going to go in and finish the vocals on some of these songs and redo some of the stuff that had already been recorded, sort of scratch tracks. And she was really excited to get into the studio, and we were all excited to get back and finish this record. And we made do with what we had, but it doesn't approach what it could have been.
Yeah, so I would just kind of like to stress that that first LP, For Good or Ill, Frenching the Bully, that's really the only complete album we made. And as Matt said, and so Mia was killed while we were trying to make the second album, and that I think would have fulfilled the contract that we had with that little label we were on here, called CZ Records. But some of the best songs that were going to be on it, we didn't even get to record. She didn't get to do vocals or something like that. And the vocals that were done, often they could have been better, and Mia and I had spoken about it, and she was going to go back and redo all of them. So, in other words, like, Frenching the Bully is the only complete album from beginning to end that we ever made. And there was one that was essentially a live thing we did in a little recording studio while we were still in Ohio at college that I never wanted released, but years later we had such little material that had been recorded, obviously, because she was killed. So anyways, Enter the Conquering Chicken was a bit of a patchwork, which is a shame because I thought it had some of our strongest songs. I don't think they were recorded properly, but it was going to be so much better than it was. So.
I'm curious, like, what you wish you were able to do as a band that you didn't get to do.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I wish we had been able to make, to my mind, what would have been a really first-class, stellar album, or a series of them, and we never got to. I really wish we had. I obviously wish that she had continued to live and such. I wish we'd gotten to do. I wish that we'd gotten to play in New York City, which is my hometown, and do a U.S. tour, because we never did a full United States tour, and we were about to. We were about to go back to Europe, that's the most extensive touring we ever did. We toured Europe once in 1991, and it was like a magical experience. Everything came together. We were an unknown band, and we were there at the right time when there was massive interest in heavy, hard, punk music, underground rock music, grunge, whatever, from the US, from Seattle. And it was just an incredible time at a bunch of different levels. We stayed with people. We didn't stay in any hotels or anything. The shows really varied from night to night wildly, so we never knew like what the conditions might be. From like playing a massive, one of the largest club in Berlin with like a club with like 25 huge rooms, to like a few nights later playing in like an abandoned building in like the Netherlands where like
called the Dirty Cat Box.
Yeah, like really terrible situations. Some of them, like in one of them, this was like literally a basement, so a subterranean cellar, ancient cellar, that the ingenious kids who were putting on the show decided to spray paint graffiti. Like an hour or two before we were supposed to play. So the fume, it was like toxic. It was like really weird. So, but we made a lot of great friends, and whenever like kind of seeming catastrophes happened on that tour, like something else would happen totally unexpectedly that would make things result in something far better that we couldn't have foreseen. So it was like really weird how that happened, and we just couldn't wait to go back. So that was one of the best things we did, and we were looking forward to returning a second time, and etc. So
I mean, all these years later, so what does this mean now that Sub Pop's gonna reissue and remaster your music?
Yeah, I mean, we feel really grateful and privileged that we have an opportunity with help from especially Rachel, but a lot of really great folks who have pitched in to help us untangle this 30-year-old ball of yarn that has been, stuffed in a box and last seen of Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of stuff, and pulling it out and cleaning it up and preserving it and getting, Jack and Dino to remaster it and establishing this new partnership with Sub Pop. We really feel like there's so much passion there to help us do this right. We feel like it's a great home for this music to be able to be available broadly again, and that's really important for us. I think for the memory of our dear friend Mia, to make sure that there are young people today that may come across it again and be inspired by her. So this has been it's been a long, hard road to get to where we are. It's taken a lot of work and a lot of support. But I'm really excited that, this stuff is coming out of a box and it's going to be on a shelf. It feels really good to be able to share it.
So as you guys were getting the archival material, I would like to play a video that has not been released as of this recording date. It's for your song, Wingo Lamo. Anything you want to say about this video or song before we play it?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And this is the one, and maybe people have heard this, just like my father told me. Anyone know that? Okay. So occasionally, I would ask Mia what the songs were about, what her lyrics were about, or ask to read them. The Torment. We knew that. But anyways, for some reason in this song, what to me was the chorus, I thought she was saying the words, just like my father told me. So I said to her, one time we were hanging out, and I said, so Mia, what did your father tell you? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I said, in Wingo Lamo, when you say just like my father told me, like, what did he say? And she was like, what, you idiot, what are you talking about? I was like, just like my father told me. I'm like, yeah. And I sang it to her, and she said, no, I'm the words that are actually immobilized by the torment. Not just like my father told me. So anyway, I was like, wow, that's great. So from that point on, every once in a while when we would play it live, and this one, I always loved playing it live. And it was one of my favorites. Well, you'll see if you pay attention. So it was always funny.
If I can just introduce the video. So this is from that footage that Doug Prey shot for the film Hype, of a concert that we played at Rock Candy in January of 1993. And Doug generously made the original film available for us to transfer. It's the highest resolution transfer of this film that's ever been done. It's been up-resed and cleaned up by some really amazing, talented editors and color grading people, and it was just such a treasure to be able to see this. And it sounds really good, and the performance was really good. So we're really excited that this is going to be released publicly very soon.
Well, let's take a look.
Just all once. Tell me where it ever
So that was just a portion of the Gits, Wingo Lamo. Any final words that you want to say about Mia the Gits before we wrap up?
I appreciate you bringing us on to this program to help share it. Andy and I, we haven't really spoken to anyone about this. We've talked to a journalist for the first time about 2 weeks ago in 25 years. So it's kind of a lot bringing it out. We feel like everyone who's involved in coming across it has just been really wonderful. So we're grateful for the support and the interest all these years later, and just excited to be getting it out for people.
That was my conversation with the Gits members Matt Dresner and Andy Kessler. Seattle Sub Pop Records has recently remastered and re-released the Gits catalog. It's available online. The remastered version of the Gits' second album, Frenching the Bully, will be released for physical sales on January 31st. And KEXP will be celebrating the Gits that day. More details on that celebration will be announced the first week of January here on KEXP. And that was A Deeper Listen. Thanks to Jackson Long for being the inspiration to make the live event happen and for his help with audio production and video during the show. Thanks to Julian Martlew and Brandon Fitzsimmons for their audio help with the live event. Thanks to the events team for helping make it possible, especially McKenna Haley and Armando Paz. Thanks to Rachel Flotard for helping book the Gits for the event and being an overall amazing human. You can check out Sound and Vision, the radio version of the show, each Saturday morning from 7:30 to 9 a.m. Pacific on KEXP. Broadcasting at 90.3 FM in Seattle and at 92.7 San Francisco Bay Area, streaming worldwide at KEXP.org. I'm Emily Fox. If you like what you hear on this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. You can also pitch in $6 a month to support what we do on this show, on this podcast. You can do that at KEXP.org/deeper. But most of all, thanks for taking a deeper listen.